Hello, everyone. This is my Week 10 discussion on researcher bias and reflexivity. My topic is on gambling disorder. My current research question is: what are the experiences of young adults using sports betting applications? This topic is meaningful to me because I returned to the United States after the sports betting momentum had already begun, and it was included in my culture shock. Because of the focus on the 2020 election and the COVID-19 pandemic, this information did not come up in conversations at my workplace or at the top of foreign news cycles. When I returned to the United States, I saw a bus with a large advertisement for DraftKings. At the time, I did not know what DraftKings specifically focused on for gambling. Later, I looked it up and I didn't think this was a good idea to advertise more gambling options in New Haven because the city's median income is already low compared to the national median income. But the advertisements were already there. Student Meyer and Carasco, 2024. My social media and TV streaming advertisement algorithms already started pushing different sports betting applications to me until I requested multiple times to not see the applications, to not see the advertisements. In 2026, the economic stability of the middle class and the lower class is still wavering. I worry about how this added option to gamble will impact young adults who are starting careers and now have income to use. As Hay CM explained, researchers are part of the research process and our beliefs and experiences can shape the research, but it can also add biases and experiences that can affect the outcome of the research. I spent very little time watching sports entertainment. I do not know the name of most athletes except for very famous ones. I am often unaware of what is occurring during major sporting events, and I also do not consider gambling fun and have spent very little time and money on any type of gambling. I was living in a country that had strict gambling laws. Legal loopholes only allowed for lottery games. Foreigners can gamble at land-based casinos, and residents can play in special game centers that allowed them to exchange tokens for valuable gifts that they can exchange again for money. Because of the language barriers and the land-based options were unappealing to me, I never gambled for the entire time I was working abroad. I agreed with these laws because it is easy for gambling to get to a point of becoming problematic. I learned a lot about personal finance and I considered investing in the stock market to be enough of a risk. I also grew up with a religious background that advises against gambling. My older family members rarely gambled and almost never went to casinos. They told me the common phrase, the house always wins. So I assumed if I gambled, I would likely lose any money, which framed my cognitions around gambling to be an unproductive activity in terms of enjoyment or financial gain. Hayes CM asserts that once researchers recognize biases, it must be determined how to minimize the influence so it will not affect the quality of the research. There is a population gap in the studies I have noted for the literature I have reviewed. The participants are majority male and white. Before this research, I was biased in thinking most gamblers are male, but I did not assume most were white. Research has shown that men are more likely to gamble, but white males are not more likely to gamble than other males of other races in the United States. To reduce sampling bias, the study needs to be advertised in a wide range of places. Using other locations such as GED programs, vocational training sites, city buses and subways, and social media ads targeted to young adults would be helpful. Using specific online forums or specific college campuses have shown to skew samples to become majority white male and college educated. Using other locations to pull more young adults that are people of color and not college educated would help the study demographics get closer to U.S. demographics, which gives the research the ability to generalize more about a wider population. It will be necessary to use more than only the original gambling motives questionnaire to collect data because this questionnaire does not include enough categories of motives. Also, the motives in the original questionnaire align with my biases of why people gamble, specifically as a coping mechanism. However, there are other motive questionnaires that include other reasons, such as financial ones. The PFIN index can measure areas of personal finance. The Problem Gambling Severity Index, or the South Oaks Gambling Screen, can be used to measure for gambling severity. The Gambling Related Cognition Scale and inventories for depression, anxiety, and perceived social supports can also be used. I have learned that I can try to focus on underrepresented populations that have gambling problems associated with sports betting. Pulling from my own lived experiences, a lot of adults and teens that are people of color at my workplace talk about sports betting, but that isn't showing up in these studies. I will need to use other online platforms and physical locations to get a wider demographic of people.